Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is the Battle Don, doing something a little different today. I want to build upon the video that I made several months ago talking about the 10 Kingdoms, the rise of the 10 Kingdoms. There's been a lot of development since the last time I spoke with you all. Again, thank you very much for coming back to the channel, and we're going to get started. I won't be able to get into everything. There's been so many developments over the past few months, but we're going to touch on a few things, starting with Asia. There was a meeting in Vladivostok of many countries in Asia, especially Southeast Asia. Central Asia had a big presence there. There were a lot of agreements made, a lot of investments that's going to take place in Central Asia and Southeast Asia, with China, of course, leading the charge on that. Also, different parts of Asia that have been under domination of the West are really keeping an eye on the developments in Africa, which I'm going to get to in a second. And they are drawing inspiration from the Africans. So you can expect to see over the next few months more developments taking place as far as pushing against the West. So we're going to see a lot of integration and agitation in that region. Also, big announcement with North Korea. Russia has made a lot of inroads into North Korea, and the leader of North Korea visited Russia and toured some different sites, and there's going to be increased military and social collaboration between those two nations. So you have this China, Russia, North Korea working together as a buffer against the United States. So that is going to be big, something to continue to watch and keep an eye on. So jumping over to North America, lately there's been, well, first of all, there was a meeting between South Korea, um, Japan, and the United States. So again, that Pacific buffer that the United States wants to um, strengthen against China, since the war in Ukraine is not going to the West advantage. Efforts in the West are going to shift towards China more and more. Also, we got the border crisis going on, with the migrants coming in from crossing over the Mexican border into the United States. Different cities across the country are experiencing a huge influx of migrants. When I look at the reports about this, I hear about the young men of military age, fighting age coming over, which I do see a lot of that. Also, I see a lot of women and children as well. There's an issue with child trafficking that's taking place. I was seeing a report of certain closed down facilities like Walmart's, for example, being used or reconverted to house some of these children. And in some cases, there is a connection. This is all in the whole rubric of the trafficking. There was a movie that came out not too long ago dealing with that. It faced some strange censorship, if you will. So those are some things to keep an eye on. I also was taking a look at some information about cartels working inside of the forest in America. So it's a lot of things going on. We're going to get into at a later date mystery culture, in which the organized crime, be able to touch more on organized crime. For now, we're going to keep things just in common culture. Those of you that, if you don't understand what I mean, I did a video on technique, and in that video, I describe or delineate the difference between common culture and mystery culture. Also, there was a meeting in Cuba. Remember, you guys, when I spoke about Cuba being a power center, So there was it's called the G77 plus China. Basically, most of the world outside of the West, the G7 especially, this is like the counterbalance. When the G7, the West is essentially in the minority. Most of the world's population, resources, so on and so forth, are not in the West. And so there was a meeting that took place in Cuba. And that was it's a very symbolic place, a very symbolic event. Then, right across the water, right next door, Haiti, there is discussion about an invasion of Haiti. Okay, so from what I understand, there's going to be some Caribbean nations involved in that. Also, I was hearing about Kenya being involved in that, which is very interesting. Kenya is part of the Anglophone nations of Africa, English-speaking nations. I don't think that there will be much support from the French-speaking African countries to do an invasion of a French-speaking nation, being Haiti. So that brings us to Africa. Africa is rising. We see large-scale pushback within the francophone countries. It's actually amazing. I am biased. I'll let you know right now I'm biased. And so that's something for me that I really like to see Africa really regaining its independence. One of the things was dealing with the uranium that is mined in Niger. So for a long time, the French were getting uranium from Niger at a huge discount, and now they're not able to do that anymore. I think they were paying um, 80 cents. And when I say cents, I'm speaking about euros, where the market price for uranium was or is around 200 euros. So they were getting what, 98% discount on this energy. And France is highly reliant on um, the uranium because they have so much of their energy being produced by nuclear power. I believe that the United States is going to really push out Europe and try to have Africa is more of a when it comes to dealing with the West. Basically, that will mean just dealing with the United States. So again, agitation, integration taking place. When you hear messages coming out of the media speaking about certain leaders in Africa that pushing back against the West, it's probably going to be in more agitative terms. And when you hear about leaders that are pro-Western, it's probably going to be in more integrative terms. Again, refer to the video that I made about propaganda, and you can see more what I mean when I say agitation versus integration. Okay, so just taking a look at my notes. Um, Europe, heavy deindustrialization in Europe. Germany has declared that they are in a recession, a deep recession that's only going to increase. Also, the leaders, I think it was Baerbock, spoke about how literally said that she's not really concerned about the people and their situation. I'm, I might be misquoting her, but that's essentially the takeaway that I got from it. Is basically that what's happening socially within Europe, that's not the concern. It's more about the fight against Russia and Ukraine. So what that basically is gonna what that basically means is that there's going to be increased austerity in Europe. So when I say austerity, I mean the economic situation will continue to go down, and the rulers are the rulers of Europe are pretty much in line with this. This is something that they are in agreement with happening to their people. So for the longest time, I remember hearing about Africa and how rulers in Africa and that they only looked out for themselves and their small group. And so, what's going to happen going forward is this is more and more going to be the characterization of European leaders is that there are larger geopolitical um, concerns that they have, and their own people are going to have to more and more fend for themselves. With that being said, there's been increased protests in Europe. Remember the previous video when I spoke about the West, when I spoke about the WEF. I never really looked at the WEF like they had power in a global sense. I mostly look at when I see WEF making statements. To me, it's always that's applying to the West. They might speak about the world, but really, all the austerity, all of the problems that they are saying, hey, you're just gonna have to come to accept. They're speaking to the West. That's what's gonna happen. That's what is happening in Western countries. Europe is the focal point. Like I said before, I still believe that the European Union is going to dissolve. We see that it's happening right now. First is the pushback against NATO. Uh, there's a lot of tensions because of this Ukraine war, and how Russia is crushing Ukraine, and by proxy, they're crushing NATO. They're fighting NATO, and they're beating NATO. And the plan that the NATO has is not going the way that they expected it to go, and it's causing a lot of problems. Now Poland has pretty much said, "Hey, we're done supporting Ukraine." They're the neighbor of Ukraine, took in millions of refugees, gave a tremendous amount of military support. They're pushing back. So remember, I talked about Poland being a power center in Europe, the two kingdoms of Europe, uh, and it's pretty much playing out. Poland is assuming a leadership role within Europe, and they will continue to do so. In Norway, I haven't heard so much as far as big news coming out of Norway. I just know that they have their industry. You know, they have the machinery to make the chips and the microchips, and they also have the energy. So they're in a position to. I still would say that they're in a position to uh, be the main power center in that other European kingdom. Those two European kingdoms, again, Poland and uh, Norway. I still hold to that. Also, migrant crisis is just growing within Europe. I'll speak more on that at a different time. I saw some of that close up when I was in Europe, and it's a mess. So basically, what's happening with Europe? In some sense, I would say that Europe is like they're being absorbed into U.S. economy in a way. They're being turned into vassals of the United States. Basically, they've cut themselves off from Russia. It looks like Russia has no desire to be considered European anymore. Since the time of Peter the Great, a lot of advancements culturally, socially took place in Russia because there was a looking towards the West as opposed to the East. And now pretty much all that's been undone. Looks like Russia doesn't really want to have much to do with European society, social culturally anymore. And they're looking towards the East as they pretty much straddle East and West. So um, you got that. So on their eastern side, they're cut off from Russia, all that cheap energy. Then on their western side, the ally that they had for so long with the United States is pretty much setting them up to be dependent on the United States for energy and for protection. So if they're worried about aggression from Russia, well, they're getting arms from the United States. They're not getting cheap energy from Russia. Well, they're going to get expensive energy from the United States. So Europe is the power, the prestige that they had. It's over with. It's all downhill from here. So with the Western foot, those five Western kingdoms, I still pretty much leave those as I had them, as I first envisioned them. The leader being the United States, teamed up with Canada. We see that the move Canada made recently, speaking to the assassination of a Sikh individual within Canada, putting India on blast for that. That has uh, strained relations between India and the West greatly. The Indian people, really a lot of kingdoms in India. You know, I didn't know this at first, but as I've done more research, I'm coming to find out about the formation of India and how it's really multiple kingdoms. And so these kingdoms were brought together under British dominance and to into form what is now known as India. So it's not like the people on the subcontinent are a monolith. There's a very diverse people, but they share a uh, common blood in a sense. So India is really in a tough position right now. So with that eastern foot, I'm gonna make some changes to that. Uh, I would still say that Russia, because of the military, uh, they're basically showing and proving the world that when it comes to military might, they're the top dog. So they're still that big toe. Then you got China. They're coming under increasing pressure. They still haven't proved themselves lately militarily. I think that's going to come with the conflict over Taiwan. They will have a chance to show what they're made of militarily. Also, you've got over a billion souls in China. They're not all on one page. They might have some issues with the way that China is being run. It's very complicated situation. So Chinese leadership has to be very careful on how they maneuver because that's a whole lot of people to be have angry at you. So still watch China, but I still keep them as that next toe. Um, then because of the uprising in Africa, I'm moving them up. Uh, they're just showing that they are they're they're fighting. They're fighting back. Uh, Ethiopia. Remember when I mentioned Ethiopia being one of the power centers? Ethiopia just got officially. They're officially in BRICS now. Also Egypt. So again, I hold that Ethiopia is going to be that power center on the eastern coast. You already have South Africa. There's political issues in South Africa, and I think that there's a lot of work that needs to be done within the region. Still a lot of, it's a tightrope they have to walk because under former British dominance, there's still a lot of influences within South Africa that are going to try to undermine any sort of development within the BRICS. So we'll have to watch that. With what's happening with the uprisings against France in the west of Africa, Nigeria is in a sticky situation because technically the people that live in the north of Nigeria, they're the same people as the people in Niger. So any sort of intervention that is launched by African nations against Niger, it could really backfire in a major way within Nigeria. You could have war, like say for example, Nigeria being having a leading role in ECOWAS. If they were to just really push forward and try to intervene inside of Niger, that could bounce back on them, and they could have a civil war take place inside of Nigeria. So there has long been um, schisms within Nigeria. Again, just like the British consolidated multiple kingdoms uh, within India, they did the same thing in Nigeria. There's multiple different people groups that were just jammed together. That's a strategy that works well, that had worked very well for the British as far as dominating people by basically having them fight against one another so that they can't fight against the British. So the British still has levers of control that they can pull within Nigeria to keep the people fighting against one another so that any sort of uprising against the West can be thwarted in that sense. So, um, but again, the Africans are fighting in a major way. It's very visible, and they are motivating people throughout the rest of the world. So we'll see how that goes. As far as India, I would say because they're in such a precarious position, and you know, externally trying to balance the East and West, and internally, the whole reason why the guy in Canada was assassinated is because there's a movement amongst some Sikh people, independence movement. There are other people groups within India that also are not happy with the way India has been ruled up until today. So, and then you have the long-standing problem with Pakistan. So, like I said before, peace with Pakistan, India, it's going to be fundamental for India to really, really take hold as really fall into that power center position. So with all that pressure, I'm moving them down to the pinky toe. And then Latin America, really not hearing so much as far as overt pushback against the West because they're so close to the United States geographically. So they have to move a little bit more. They have to move a little bit more discreetly. We do see that the tension between the United States and Mexico is increasing because of the border situation. Again, if I make when I make a video about the uh, mystery culture, we get more into the organized crime element of that and why it's so difficult to do certain things with the border because Americans have a love affair with the dope, and so it, that's not going anywhere anytime soon. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on, that border situation and any sort of um, solutions that can be had. In South America, Brazil making moves within the BRICS. Argentina, I believe Argentina accepted into the BRICS or close to being accepted. I have to check that, but they just elected some leadership that is pro-Western. So there's a conflict there. They can't straddle the fence. They've got huge debt to the West, and we're just gonna have to see how that all plays out. It's a mess. So uh, I just wanted to give you guys this update. Again, so much stuff is happening. It's hard to kind of keep up with all the. It's hard. It's difficult to kind of keep up with all the developments because things are changing so fast. But it's just amazing to see how quickly things are changing. And just what I said in the first video about this 10 Kingdoms, it seems to be playing out pretty much Um, like I said, for the most part, I will say that because of the war or the potential war with China, I, I see that the China having dominance within the Pacific, like I said earlier or previously, um, I don't know if that's going to play out like I first thought about it, because America is still making moves in the Pacific, forging ties with certain Pacific Island nations to counterbalance China, um, making the agreement that they made with Australia with the weapons agreement. So we'll see how that goes. But when it comes to the overland economic ties with the Belt and Road Initiative, China is really making a lot of they're really doing a lot of business with like countries like Malaysia, um, what Vietnam, all of these countries were in Vladivostok for the meeting that just recently took place, Vladivostok, Russia. And so, over when it comes to overland, China's uh, they have much more. It's much easier for them to do things overland than it is over the sea, because they're going to have to contend with the United States. So, I'm going to be coming out with more videos. I know I keep saying that, but now I'm just gonna stop saying it. I'm gonna do. So I got this little rig I can walk around and talk to you guys, and that's gonna help me to make more videos. Because it's I gotta tell you, making the videos where I put all the graphics up and all that, that's extremely time consuming, and it's kind of discouraging, because I'm like, every time I make a video, it's like a week's worth, 40 hours worth of work sometimes. And so doing it like this, when I can just talk, I might throw up a few graphics here and there, but that's going to really make it more conducive for me to get out here and make this content for you guys. So thank you for sticking with the channel, and it's more to come. So you guys have a great week, and we'll speak to you later.